at what point Jeff Nadu is going to join us here to break this game down here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Now, at what point, Jeff Nadu, did you say this game's over? Baylor is just too big, too strong, too fast for this Gonzaga team.
I would probably say around the 10-minute mark of the first half. I mean, it was, not for nothing, Mike. I think it was 16-4. Look, when you're Gonzaga, look, the truth of the matter is they weren't very good defensively. At the end of the day, against good teams, they just aren't very good defensively. And they just looked tired. They looked lost. They looked all over the place. Timmy didn't look good. Suggs picked up 2 quick fouls. It just wasn't a great night.
Yeah, Suggs looked like the one guy offensively that had a clue out there. Everybody else looked like they were in quicksand all night long. And you wonder, so many times over the years, people have talked about Gonzaga's schedule and if that, in the end, I don't know, does that play a role when you watch that game last night? I mean, they play a decent scheduled non-conference. Now, this year was a little wonky, but they played West Virginia. They had played other teams that they handled. They beat teams in the tournament. So, I don't know. People keep using that. Oh, that's what happens when you play St. Mary's all year.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, they played Kansas, they played Iowa, they played Virginia, they played West Virginia, they played BYU twice. They played teams, that are competent. And look, Mike, let's remember, they beat Oklahoma, Creighton, USC, and UCLA to get to this point. So, I don't put much stock into that. Look, they just didn't, ultimately play, the whole team didn't play well. I think Timmy scored 2 points in the second half. Andrew Nembhard looked, drunk at times. I don't know what was going on. You just couldn't seem to dribble. Corey Kispert was horrific from 3, which over the last 3 games, he was really bad from 3. They just and they're not a team, Mike, that's very deep, so they don't really have the option to go to, a Flagler off the bench or a Meyer off the bench. They don't have that kind of group. They're basically a five-man team. They don't have much depth. Ayayi didn't play well either. So, I think if you're Mark Few, you've got to, over the next year or two, which he will, they got to get some depth, and I think it would have been helpful if they'd have had 2 guys that could come off the bench and give them, you look at Meyer last night. He had, he didn't do a whole lot, but he hit the glass. He was involved. Flagler had 13 points, Mike. Gonzaga didn't have a player like that.
Oh, I thought a big difference, Jeff, was the depth that Baylor was able to keep rolling different guys at you the whole game long. But, come on. I feel like the whole season was the Gonzaga story, and Baylor was just kind of like the other team. And they showed last night that you didn't talk about us enough all season long. We're actually the better team. Like I was saying, you would know this because you're one of these guys that remembers just everything. I can't think of a matchup with 2 less high profile, like Baylor and Gonzaga have got to be, that had to be like the lowest 2 profile schools matching up against each other in the finals.
Yeah, we haven't really had these type of games.
No.
2 like kind of not that these are unknown schools, but before the last 20 years, these were unknown.
Baylor was one of the worst programs in the country when Drew took that job. People forget Baylor's this tiny little school in the middle of Texas. Same with Gonzaga's out in the middle of nowhere. A couple of years ago we had Butler get there, but they played Duke. It was, so
that's
you
what
had,
I was gonna say,
you
had Baylor, you had Butler. You've had teams get to the Final Four like a Loyola or George Mason, but you're right. We've never had, and that was one of the reasons why I think a lot of people thought this was an underwhelming Final Four because ultimately there were 4 teams that outside of UCLA who have the obviously the John Wooden connections years ago, but Baylor when Scott Drew took that job, we have to remember they had a coach, Mike, that was covering up a murder of a player.
Yeah,
it didn't get much worse. And keep in mind the Arbral stuff on the football side. So, and as you said with Gonzaga, when he came there, Gonzaga was basically they were like a really low major. So yeah, it's incredible how far they've come, both teams. But from an exciting Final Four and a national title game, it definitely didn't live up to the hype. Now the Final Four was good, but the final game just didn't.
All right. We know our friends over at PropSwap and PropSwap.com. If we are going to prop swap for next year, if you want to get in on the futures odds for next year's tournament, Gonzaga is a 9-1 favorite to win next year. Baylor is next 12-1. UCLA 12-1. Florida State, Michigan, Ohio State, and Villanova are all 14-1. So I know you're probably already looking ahead to next college basketball season. So Gonzaga, your favorite for next year?
Yeah, for sure. I think Drew Timme is going to come back, Mike. I think he'll return. I don't really see a reason why, if I were him, I would go to the NBA. He's not a lottery pick. He's not a kid that's going to come in and get big time money. Now, that's not to say he can't. I think he really needs to get better on the defensive end, which is pretty clear last night. Suggs is gone. But, there's a lot of thought that, Mike, they're going to get Chet Holmgren, who is the number one player in the 2021 class. He's undecided yet, but there's a lot of talk that he will go to Gonzaga. They also have one of the top point guards coming in, Hunter Salas, next year from Nebraska. So, this is a recruiting class that is coming in, one of the best in the country. And if they can get Timme to come back, him and Chet Holmgren, I mean, that's an elite front line. I mean, I don't know if he can get much better. You still have Nembhard. I'd imagine he comes back. And remember, Mike, we have the year now where kids can come back. Now, Kispert's gone, and so is Suggs. But we'll have to see how that kind of opens up. But, there's a lot of teams. Baylor's going to be, just as good. They've got, a group of top 25 recruits coming in as well. So, we're very early, but yeah, that's my favorite. Gonzaga would again be right there.
Well, when we look at the Blue Bloods, they had an awful year this year. UCLA makes it to the Final Four, but Duke, Kansas, and Kentucky, they all have pretty favorable odds. If you're thinking about prop swap, 16-1 and 18-1. Duke 16-1, Kansas and Kentucky 18-1. Do we anticipate that those major universities are back in the college basketball landscape next year?
Yeah, I think with Duke, in their case, they will be. I mean, they get in the basically a top three player in Paolo Banchero coming in, the 6'9" center from Seattle. They're going to return, I think, to prominence. But I have my question marks about, a team like, North Carolina. I think they're going to take some time with Hubert Davis coming in, losing Roy Williams. A team to keep an eye on, Mike, is Michigan, obviously. They have the number one recruiting class next season coming in. I've heard reports that Hunter Dickinson will be coming back to Michigan. Now they'll have some kids that will leave, like Franz Wagner, I'd imagine. Mike Smith, from what I understand, their point guard, he should come back because he's going to have an extra year. But from what I understand, he is actually a really terrific student. He has a degree from Michigan. He went to Columbia. Smart kid. I think he's going to leave the program. So, they're going to have some retooling, but they have the number one class coming in. So as far as high end, I think Duke will be back into it pretty quickly. You mentioned UCLA. They've got some top returnees. Another team to keep an eye on, Michigan State. They've got some big time players coming in. They also added, I think, one of the best transfer players in the country, a point guard, something that Tom Izzo's team really needed. So, yeah, there's, I think, Mike, over the next couple of months, there's, I think, 1,200 transfers currently on the market. Yeah. So it's going to be a lot of moving and shaking.
And every one of them left. Every one of them left St. John's.
That's true. There's a lot of teams that there was just a move away from. And we'll see coaches leave. We'll see kids follow coaches. We'll see.
What'd you think of Porter Moser going to Oklahoma?
Yeah, I was disappointed. I was a big Loyola guy. I really like that program. But look, that's what happens, Mike. You want to level up.
I know, but is Oklahoma what you're yearning? Like, when you're doing this, do you yearn to that next level, go to Oklahoma? I mean, I know it's a Big 12 and it's a major conference, but I feel like there's something better for him.
I think, and look, that I don't think that's the highest level he will get. But, I think Oklahoma is a good school to go to. Obviously, Lon Kruger did some great things there. They've had some great players over the years. It is a football school, but, it's a great conference. It's arguably the best conference in America. And, look, I have to look into what the contract situation was and what he made there. But, you want to level up, Mike, at any level.
All right, give me your thoughts on Shaka Smart, Marquette, Chris Beard, Texas.
Yeah, the Shaka – look, Marquette continues to make odd hires. look, Shaka's a nice guy. He's a good coach. I don't know how good he'll be. It's a better program for him to be at. He's from that area. I believe he's from Milwaukee. He needs to be at a school not like Texas, where there's so many expectations and whatever. He'll be better there. I think that's more of his wavelength. He'll do well in the Chicago market as far as recruiting, that upper Midwest. As far as Beard, I'll tell you this. If I'm a Texas Tech fan, obviously I'm happy for what Chris Beard did for me as a fan, but I mean, you go to Texas, that's rough. I mean, to leave, but look, Texas has the Scott Mike, as they say, and they were able to make it happen. And it would surely bother me if I was a Red Raider fan.
No question. That'll add definitely something to that. Texas rivalry there.
He's a top coach in the country, though. I have him right top three. So he, good for Texas. They've not made good hires recently. That's a great hire.
We talked about it on last Friday. The North Carolina program has not put an impactful NBA player in the league since Jerry Stackhouse, Vince Carter, Rasheed Wallace. We're going back to the early 90s. So is that job – it's still North Carolina, though. Hubert Davis got it. But is North Carolina still North Carolina?
I don't think. I mean, and we have to remember North Carolina over the last 10 years has been North Carolina still, because Roy is still a great recruiter and he was able to get kids to come there and play. But over the last 3-4 years, it's not been in a school really since that Villanova game. Since that, it was at 2018. That was the last time Carolina's been relevant. They've missed out on some play, like Greg Anthony's kid didn't work out there. They've had a lot of misses, frankly. Hubert Davis isn't going to change it either. He wouldn't have been my first choice. He has been at North Carolina for I think 9 years now, though.
Yeah, 9 years.
Yeah, so it was probably his job to lose, but it'll take some time. But again, kids like playing for that young, guy that they coached and he played at the university and maybe sniffed the NBA, played in the NBA. That's worked, and that seems like the next step for coaching.
North Carolina, by the way, 25-1 next year. Jeff Nadu's with us. So the college basketball season is in the books. So real quick, let's turn our attention to a little NBA tonight. Sixers play the Celtics, Jeff. +2, 221.5. You should have Joel Embiid back. Sixers have beaten the Celtics twice tonight. Is this an intriguing one for you?
Yeah, I would. I mean, the Celtics have been really inconsistent, and that's been no more obvious than the 25-25 record. Defensively, they're not the same team as they've been in years past. They really have struggled on that end. Don't seem like they have just any real cohesion or consistency. They don't have that kind of feel to them this year. This number's been bet up to. It opened 1. It's been bet up all day to 2. So obviously, I think bettors are coming in and legging the Sixers. How can you not, with this being such a low number? Embiid is back. Look, we all know how different the Sixers are with Joel Embiid in the lineup. So yeah, I wouldn't have any interest in the Celtics here. And it's not good enough for me to take the Celtics just because. I mean, it's not even a great number either. To get involved with the Celtics, I need like 3.5, 4 higher, something like that. I wouldn't have any interest in the Celtics. I'd be on the Sixers or a pass.
One other one I want to get your thoughts on, because you don't see this a lot in the NBA. A double-digit 13.5, 12.5. Nuggets, Pistons, Detroit on the road at Denver, plus 12.5.
Yeah, I'm not willing to lay this number with the Nuggets just yet. They've been playing really well since Aaron Gordon came in, but the only two teams that I would lay 12, 13 with is Utah and Phoenix. I wouldn't be laying it with anyone else. Detroit's actually been decent as an underdog this year. They've been good getting points. When you look at their record, it sucks straight up. But from an ATS standpoint, they've actually made money.
All right. One thought from you, Jeff. Is there a game that you love? Baseball, basketball? What is your game du jour?
I like Atlanta, the Braves tonight. They obviously started the season 0-3, but I think you're going to get a Nats team coming in. I don't know what exactly they're going to have.
They got 10 guys on the IR.
There you go. And look, Max Scherzer, the kids in Atlanta actually have some pretty good numbers against Max. Max Scherzer's 37, Mike. I mean, he's getting up there. I don't know. Is he still the same young pitcher? I like Drew Smyly. I think he's a good up and comer in the major leagues. I think their lineup's just kind of waiting to get going. They had that tough series against the Phillies, but I think this is a decent matchup. I think a lot of the public will see this number on Scherzer and say, I got to back Scherzer. I don't know if Max Scherzer is the same pitcher. Not saying he's still not a great pitcher, but I'll gladly take a team with 10, but against a team with 10 guys out with a kid like Smiley on the mound plus money. I'll take a shot.
Jeff Nadu is back here on the Sports Bash. College basketball season, sadly, is in the books, but we'll be back on Tuesdays to talk NBA hoops, Major League Baseball, whatever soccer he's got on his mind. At Jeff Nadu on Twitter. Thanks, pal.
Thanks, Mike. Always good talking to you.
All right. He, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Great recap of the college basketball season.